J Boogie in full effect mode. Bun down is the sound. You know how we do. This is, of course, the Lounge Presents, and we're live streaming on Twitch right now. Obviously, as you already know, also on demand via Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Today, for episode number 156, we are veering a little left from what you're accustomed to seeing, but you know that we're going to be doing that on the podcast. We know what our base is. We know where we come from, but we're not monolithic. We've all got various interests that veer off into other ways. And it's no secret. I think most of y'all know that I've got a severe comic fandom, Jones, of my own. And so we had the opportunity to pull the trigger on an episode where we get to lean into that a little bit. And for today's episode, we've got a special co-host, Frostflow, in the building.
Peace. Hello, what's up?
And our special guest for today in the lounge space for the first time, super honored to have this person in the lounge space today. Giving it up for Chandler Poling.
Hey. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yes. Thank you very much for coming aboard. It's super excited to pop this off.
Great. Yeah, let's do it.
So we bringing him into the lounge space because as one of the producers of the Uncanny Experience, which is an immersive weekend fan con, basically for anyone who loves everyone's favorite mutants. If you're mutant and proud, then you know exactly what we're talking about. So we're going to start off by asking Chandler about what set it off for your fandom.
Oh, sure. Well, let's see. My first introduction to X-Men were in comics in the late 80s, I would say. I believe it was Uncanny X-Men 175. It was specifically an issue where Madeline Pryor embodies Dark Phoenix, and she has to take on the X-Men, and they all turn on Cyclops, and he's able to take down the whole team just by himself. And I remember just thinking it was such a cool cast of characters and everything, and I just was really grown into loving the X-Men. I got a kind of a graphic novel of Giant Size X-Men and got to meet all those characters. And then eventually the cartoon came out in 92, and so X-Men the Animated Series was hugely influential to me when I was a kid. And, I watched that religiously on Saturday mornings. And would fight with my parents if they tried to make us do something on Saturday morning and have to miss an episode. So we would, make sure we tape that onto our VCRs and all that. But that's kind of how I was introduced to X-Men.
Wonderful. I love that you mentioned Maddie.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love that.
Attention now.
The superior gene.
Exactly.
Literally, right? That's not funny. Yeah.
Frost, what was your intro to your fandom?
Oh man, I distinctly recall in the 80s as well, like just going to older cousins' places, like my cousin Rui, and he used to collect the original series, like John Byrne and Chris Claremont and all that. So he was gracious enough to kind of let me rummage through all that. So it was my first taste of it. And then I remember being at the CNA in Toronto back in the day when you had the Konami game, the X-Men game, like the six player, and then I'm like, wow, I got captivated. And then I found that for me, jumping into X-Men comics was a great way to kind of dive into literacy. So the one that really kind of piqued my interest was, I think it was Chris Bachalo. He illustrated it, and it was Unlimited X-Men #1, where Xavier, Jean, and Scott are stuck in Savage Land, but in Arctic. You know what I mean? They're stowaway, sort of, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Crash landed. And that was, it was an annual, so thick. So that just captivated me. After that, I was just, sucker for it, man. And of course, X-Men 92 came out. I followed Jim Lee. Like, I'm just a big fan of Jim Lee, as you can tell. I mean, I searched for this shirt for like over a decade. So huge about it. So that was my introduction to the X-Men. And lastly, a lot of my methodology as a teacher for the last 20 years, I've been an artist for 27, has been really inspired by the influence of mutantdom, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Kind of people discovering themselves, cultivating their abilities, and kind of viewing the world through a different lens. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Chandler, why do you think uh, something like the X-Men. I mean, it's obviously it's crossed over crazy into pop culture to the nth degree. But why do you think the X-Men has had this type of staying power?
Well, I think, what's interesting about them is that they are a unique group of individuals that are born a certain way and they're judged for that reason. And unlike other superheroes who obtain their powers through some sort of chemical accident or, maintain some sort of public figurehood of I'm a superhero and the public love them, X-Men never were that. They were, these kind of behind the scenes underdogs, kind of persecuted type heroes. And I think one of the things that made me stick with them for a really long time is that the messaging that the books brought forward in the cartoon and all of the storylines of the X-Men is just that the idea of trying to build understanding between two types of people. And one of the lines I remember from the cartoon was people fear what they don't understand. And it was one of those things that made me kind of grow into tolerance in a sense of understanding like, okay, this person's not going to like me and that's fine. I don't need to feel so destroyed over it because they don't understand me and they're afraid of me or whatever. Because I was, I'm gay and I grew up as a queer teen at a Catholic high school. So there was a lot of, otherness happening. But I never let it kind of, gnaw at me because I had the X-Men storylines kind of talking to me that, that it's okay and that, they just don't get it. And you just got to kind of be yourself and fight for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that definitely resonates. It definitely resonates with me. The fact that they were this, they were the oppressed people of the Marvel universe, and they were always, getting like the worst end of the stick at every point. All they wanted was just to exist. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so many things were fighting against them and their right to exist. And I mean, how does one not relate to that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I feel that completely. Now, a lot of people are into comics. A lot of people are into X-Men specifically. Not all of us lean so much into it that they decide to produce something like the Uncanny Experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you take your love of the X-Men and turn it into the Uncanny Experience?
Yeah, so the Uncanny Experience, it's produced in partnership with Dylan and Chris, who are my producing partners, and we three decided to create this event because there just was a lack of it. There's all sorts of fan-driven events that are centered around
True.
Xena or Power Rangers or He-Man or whatever. There's so many like niche fandoms, and so we're like, where's the X-Men one? And it's just it's a platform that we loved, characters we loved, and we're just super passionate about it. So we sought out to create just a general convention, but then it morphed into this type of immersive experience inside this mansion that we transformed for the weekend. And that was kind of an interesting stepping stone for us because we just decided like, we're going to do something completely different. Like, I don't know anything like it, honestly. I can't think of this hybrid of an immersive experience with convention elements. And so we kind of built it from the ground up, creating something that we would be excited to attend. And thankfully, everybody loves it.
Chandler, when I first found out about the Uncanny Experience, no lie, I think I lost it. Like, are you serious? This is for real.
It's what you dream about, as a kid.
Yeah.
I know I did. I'm like, wait, and I used to look on the maps before internet. I'd be like, okay, so, if you're going down the highway and you pass Salem, wait, there's no center Salem. There's a north and a south. But I'm sure it's around in there. I wonder if I could take a vacation and a road trip. In fact, I did. So seeing that, my mind was blown, man. I don't know when I can go, but that's hype. Is it in Minnesota?
Yeah, we created it in Minneapolis, Minnesota, because it's where I'm based and I grew up. And the venue kind of came to us through a recommendation. It's called the Minneapolis Club. It's a historic kind of members club from the the late 1800s, and it just kind of mimics this vibe of private school, kind of with bedrooms, and you can stay there as well. They have 10 bedrooms, and it's primarily a wedding venue for the public. But we transform it into this Xavier Institute vibe where we create classrooms and kind of interactive character bedrooms, or Xavier's office with Cerebro and everything like that. So it just is it's this fun kind of art department. We're building a world inside of this incredible venue that does 90% of the lifting for us, because it's just so beautiful inside. And the exterior, when you walk up to it, people always say that they just feel like that's what it is. And it's so satisfying to hear that from people, that they just feel like they're there already and they barely even stepped in the door.
That's wild, man. How did you get the funding to do this?
It's all through ticket sales,
Really?
So we basically just created this style of event, and with the concept of like, okay, so our ticket prices unfortunately are high, but it has to pay for the venue and all of the guests that we fly in and everything like that. So it is a curated experience for people, because it's a small venue. It's not a convention hall. We can't fit thousands of people inside, so it only can fit about 500 people. So it is limiting in the sense of ticket prices, but it definitely pays it forward with so much experience that you never forget by entering it.
Wow, incredible. And one more thing, sorry, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I think I saw on Airbnb that you can go and stay there. Am I correct? Is this right?
So
Maybe somewhere
Airbnb, made this kind of mansion. They just took somebody's home and they painted it up to look like the X Mansion, and that was like a pop-up thing that lasted for about a year or a year and a half. And so that's actually in upstate New York. Ours is a different thing, and it kind of happened at the same time when we launched. I think 3 months or 4 months later, I feel like the Airbnb launched, and so we get a lot of cross-pollination. But to answer your question, yes, you can stay in our venue. We do have 10 bedrooms that are for rent, or for that you can book as a hotel stay.
Take my money.
Right?
That's too dope, man.
Oh, wow.
I feel bad I missed the Airbnb, but still, we have this. This is great. This should be like an ongoing type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, hopefully it keeps going forward. We're on year 3 right now.
Hopefully, man. Amazing.
What can people expect if they come down to the Uncanny Experience?
Well, as I mentioned, you can expect this immersive environment where you feel like you're stepping into Xavier Institute. We have a traditional convention element of that, what you expect by going to a con. So we're going to have special guests. We've had Chris Claremont, Gail Simone. We've all types of actors from the animated series. This year we have Tyler Mane, who is Sabretooth in the X films, and Deadpool Wolverine. And so we have that element where you can go and meet celebrities, get autographs. There's a vendor hall where you can purchase comics and toys and all sorts of stuff, and attend a panel and a Q&A, with the creator talking about what they love. And then we have a whole other level. So that's on like level 2. And then level 3, we have this immersive layer where we have like a student body hall. We've got these immersive rooms that I mentioned, the whole Xavier office. We have a classroom set up. So a lot of people will come in and teach immersive classes. So I'm trying to think of an example. Whether it's like social, like intergalactic social studies of the Shi'ar Empire, and these people are just experts of comic continuity or whatever. They'll just come in and teach amazing classes, or all about X-Men villains, or Morlock Society, or whatever. They teach all these really cool immersive classes that you get to kind of deep dive into the lore of X-Men.
Oh my goodness.
And then on top of that, I would say, on top of that, we have all these like activations and things happening. So we have something called Mystery in the Mansion, which is kind of like a scavenger hunt escape room vibes, where you are given a quest and you have to go through the mansion to kind of unlock whatever's happening. Last year, you had to rescue Lockheed. Lockheed was kidnapped, and you had to solve who took him and where was he in the mansion. And then you had to find the code in order to unlock him and rescue him.
Escape room style.
Yeah, and then this year it's a murder mystery. So one of Multiple Man's dupes was found dead, and so it is up to you to solve who killed him.
Jeez. Wow.
That
That's
Jamie always getting
incredible.
himself into trouble.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
real, right?
Yeah, we have a huge after party. Saturday night we flip the mansion into party mode, and we've got DJ. We've got this Hellfire Club activation where one of the rooms turns into Hellfire Club, and we've got
So
our
dope.
Sebastian Shaw and Emma Frost and Celine and everybody come out, and it's a 21 plus adult kind of with the
Yeah.
I figured,
burlesque vibes, and we have free champagne for our guests and stuff like that. So people
It's
can
fun.
kind of dress up and feel like a member of the inner circle.
Yeah.
We have drag show, we've got karaoke, all sorts of stuff happening at night.
Incredible. Wow.
I'm
Explosion.
literally losing my mind right now. Okay.
Explosion. That's too good, man.
Oh wow.
I have a question, okay? So, like, from the time I was young, you know what I'm saying, getting all up into this and growing and everything, music has been a big part of my life. I'm sure same thing with y'all, right?
Yeah.
And, you guys are DJs. Am I correct? Right, Chandler, right? So, for me, I always think about the soundtrack of the X-Men. And I think about albums that have textures and other things like that that remind me and they reference things like from the video games, from the cartoons and stuff like that. So my question related to the experience in terms of music, and I have my own kind of answers for this that I can share, but I want to hear yours first, is are there particular albums that you have or that you've listened to or specific songs that remind you of an era or a story arc of the X-Men? And if you do, what are they?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if there is a specific album that can come to mind that kind of evokes certain storylines. I mean, certainly, obviously, the animated theme song and various, like the music score from the films, like obviously brings me back into that world. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. There's something about certain artists or certain albums or whatever, especially if you were listening to them at the time, when you were getting really influenced by this stuff that would really capture you. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. I have a blank mind to try to answer that question.
It's a hard question. I don't know, Jay, like you have anything before I drop a couple?
Oh, I got one for sure.
Yeah.
When I think of the utopian area, Public Enemy takes a nation of millions to hold us back.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's so ill.
Yeah.
Man.
How about
I got
you?
goosebumps thinking about that. I have a couple. So the first one that it just really jumped in my head was I thought, okay, if they ever recreate the Phoenix Saga, and if MCU does it correct, in my opinion, it should be like a 2-3 part series, 3 film kind of deal. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You gotta have the ending credits. As long as I got you by the Charmels. You know what I'm saying? Wu-Tang took that sample.
Ooh,
You know what I'm saying? No fire is
nice.
too hot. No snow is too
Oh,
cold.
that's sick.
Youth will
That's
never
sick.
leave me. I'll never grow. Oh, I was like, oh my God.
That's sick.
When you hear the chorus, jumping, I got goosebumps. That's like perfect for that whole Phoenix saga. You know what I'm saying? The
Mhm.
relationship between her and Scott. Oh man, perfect.
Yeah.
And then the second one I thought about for a long time, I think for the last 24 years, was Exciter by Depeche Mode. And if you listen to the Exciter album by Depeche Mode and you hear the palette that that Martin Gore was kind of really putting on that album and the way it was produced, all those sounds, I'm like, oh my God, dude, this shit is straight up X-Men. Like when you hear the type of, the
I
way
hear
they're
that.
using the synths and stuff. And if you haven't heard the album, check it out. But the
I
Exciter
hear that.
album, you know what I'm saying? It was kind of a little bit overlooked, but when you deep dive into it, it's totally like X-Men, completely from front to back. And you got to drop that in the soundtrack or something in the future, man. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I love Depeche Mode.
Yeah, same.
Chandler, can you tell us about your association with Dublab?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a guest DJ for Dub Lab Radio, which is an independent radio station in Los Angeles. My day job is to work with composers and songwriters in film, TV, and video games. So Dub Lab has me do a monthly program for them where I have conversations with artists that are a part of the film, TV, and video game realm.
Oh, sick.
We have
Amazing.
talk about all sorts of different types of projects that people are working on across those three mediums.
Oh, that's sick.
So cool.
Yeah, so I'm deep into the soundtrack world, like soundtrack world albums, I know it pretty inside and out. It's been a really fun project with Dub Lab. I think I'm like 5 years into it now, so it's been
That's
a
dope.
while doing monthly shows for them.
That's
That's
lovely, man. Straight up. So it was a good question, right?
Yeah,
Kind of
and we
related.
actually, we the X-Men tie-in, of course, is we've had the Newton brothers, who are the composers of X-Men '97.
yes,
Yep.
Who came
yes.
on and talked about working on that show, as well as all their other amazing stuff with Mike Flanagan and Haunting of Hill House and all of their really cool stuff that they've done.
Wow.
That's dope.
Right. So you guys talk about like obviously you're getting voice actors and people involved in that type of podcast or that radio show.
Yeah, the radio show is like pretty
Specifically
strictly
music.
composers and songwriters or music supervisors, anybody in that kind of world. There's rarely an X-Men tie-in, unfortunately. So
Oh, I see.
it's other than the Newton brothers coming on, but on as far as like a podcast is concerned, that was Dub Lab, of course. I'm a co-host of a podcast called the X Reads Podcast with my co-host Chris, and what we do is we dissect a single issue in the X-Men universe, and often with a special guest. So we just go cover to cover, talking about the issue, the era that it was released, and talk about the art, the storyline, the costumes that people are wearing, anything that kind of sparks interest. And when we often have guests, which we've had voice actors, creators, writers, artists, all that type of stuff, we let them choose an issue that either they worked on that they want to talk about the creation of, or something from their past that made an impact on them creatively. And those are really cool conversations to have. I will say it's really fun to talk to the creatives who are a part of the world that we love.
X Reads, correct? X
Yeah,
Reads.
X
Yeah.
Reads. Yeah.
That's ill. I mean, I've been collecting for a long time. I have, an array of books. My favorite specifically is Rick Remender, Uncanny X-Force from 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Big shout out to Deadly Mike Del Mundo, the homie in Toronto, good friend.
Hey.
And he actually got me back into collecting books back in 2010 when he got hired by Marvel. But my main thing for me is lately has been Marvel Legends since pandemic. So I got like 600 and I collected quite a bit and I started to kit bash them together. So when I think about X Reads, I've been kind of in this idea, in this concept of, okay, how nowadays you're seeing some books or some story arcs that are going back in time and looking in between maybe things that happen. Like a good example is Deadly Genesis, kind of speaking about what happened to, Vulcan and all that stuff. But I'm thinking, okay, well, with my Marvel Legends, I'm starting to kit bash and come up with variants of things that could have happened but never happened, and dialing into AI. For me, I look at AI as more of a tool rather than the end all be all. I like to use it as a paintbrush or anything, and do mixed media. So I'm kind of, for me, when I hear about X Reads, it makes me curious about how can there be offshoots and conversations with some of these guys to maybe influence the canon later on. And why this kind of question comes up in my mind is I think about, actually, and I'll reference Deadly. He jumped in my mind about it, was when he created, I think he was doing vision books, and WandaVision in the films got inspired by the aesthetic of what he was doing in those books, where it was like the 50s style, you know what I'm saying? Like family dynamic, white picket fence. And then WandaVision adopted that. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't, the comics are getting inspired by films as well, or even cartoons. For instance, Age of Apocalypse was heavily inspired by X-Men animated series. That whole episode where Nimrod pops off and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So there's opportunities for the canon of the books themselves to be inspired not only by the films or video games, but who knows? People kind of kit bashing and coming up with fresh ideas, like on the fly with the figures, which are an authentic, so to speak, representation of some of these characters that we know and love. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, like I get curious about that. And as far as like the radio show goes in LA, I always think it's incredibly amazing opportunity to come up with things that maybe a lot of these cats who are in the helm at MCU, for example, can hear and get like some fresh ideas around, like, actually, yeah, these type of songs would in fact represent what these characters are about, or the story arc. And yes, we have the money to buy the rights for these songs, you know what I mean? But it's more accurate,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think about that just to show love, because a lot of people give not necessarily constructive criticism. I feel like this a generation where it's a little bit more spoiled. It's like
Mm,
we've been given the world, and now everybody's like expecting so much. And granted, there's reason for it, but how's about we get into a space where, like you, for example, Chandler, it's like you have appreciation, so you're sharing your appreciation to the nth degree. And I think more of us as fans share different ways to give appreciation. It'll give even more fuel and kind of change the preconceived notion around this idea of like superhero fatigue or whatever.
yeah.
I counter
Mm.
that, like superheroes and what we're doing and what we're reading and experiencing with these books. This is the modern folklore of our time. So in 100 and 200 years, they're going to be looking at these stories as this is the old stories like Peter Pan, et cetera, or the ones that are more traditional and ancient, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mhm.
From
Absolutely.
culture, the mythos, you know what I'm saying, to teach us about ourselves, right? So that's how I value it in that respect. So to be taken care in that way,
Yeah, I love people and fans that give back to the collective community with whatever they're doing, whether it's a podcast or kit bashing or the Uncanny Experience. It's like
Yeah.
all of these is going into the same pot of creativity and celebrating something that we all really love. And yeah, I think having that positive attitude is really important to kind of it's that whole community aspect of building each other up and finding inspiration from what everybody else is doing and
Mhm.
hopefully that then influences the larger population of culture, and maybe X-Men can spearhead that. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, you're definitely helping spearhead that. I, I I'm sure you've already been told this, but by helping co-produce the Uncanny Experience, you are really providing. I mean, look at you describe the things that happen at the Uncanny Experience, and I'm over here wigging out, just losing my, just you know what I'm saying, just like you were
Yeah.
doing that for so many people, and I think you deserve your flowers for that because you were doing that for so many people.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really rewarding. I will say it's exhausting. It is not
I'm
doesn't make a
sure it is.
profit. It's
Yeah.
just all it is us just kind of curating this event and pouring everything we have into it. And like I said, the reward comes from people's feedback afterwards. Reading reactions and people's emotional connection to the event is
Yes.
unmatched. Unmatched. Just like I remember just reading about a father who took his daughter and just saying how it was such a special moment for him that he gets to introduce his daughter to Chris Claremont and kind of have her listen to him talk about creating these stories and how that moment is just such a treasured moment for him, and being able to provide that environment for people is like I said, it's just I can't think of anything better.
So valuable. It's profound,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
how can we bounce off that? Because I know we're reaching 2:30 and I got a boogie. But I fortunately had opportunity to meet like Catherine Disher and Cal Dodd. They come and do the conventions and whatnot. And in Oakville last year, I got to meet Cal, and we had a good lengthy conversation for about maybe 15 minutes because before people kind of showed up. And I brought the big Eric and Julie Lewald book,
Yep.
the original anime series, which is a masterpiece. If you don't have it, you should grab that
Well, I
book.
have it. Yes.
Wonderful, you know what I'm saying? For those who are watching, if you don't have it, grab it. So I,
Mhm.
I presented this book. I said, listen, Cal, I've been a big fan, and get into the breadth of what you're saying, Chandler and Jay. Like, I was able to express to him a lot of gratitude and just a genuine vibe between him. But I expressed to him specifically how when I started working in Canadian Arctic, like in Nunavut in 2007, and I got a chance to be on the Baffin, and it was a continual thing for 7 years. I was always up there. I always thought of the first thing I thought about was that episode. I think it was the fifth or sixth episode. What is it, Cold Hearts or something like that?
Oh yeah, Cold Vengeance, I think is
Cold
what it is.
Vengeance, excuse
Yeah.
me,
Mhm.
Cold Vengeance, when Wolverine is in the Baffin and he's with the Inuit community.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, and I'm up there and I'm working with the Inuit, and like, your your voice is in my head, you know what I'm saying? About the
That's
level of peace
awesome.
that you experience when you're in that space, and to feel accepted, and I was like, man, I feel like Logan out here, because it was good for me as an individual, as an artist, to grow and to heal and to contribute work that's beneficial
Yeah.
to people, and to learn lessons about just like living up there in general.
Yeah.
And he
Absolutely.
was, he was like, wow, you actually went up there, it's incredible. And I got him to kind of reiterate some things that he was saying from the show, and I spliced something. I saw on one of my Instagram pages called Cargo of Legends. So if you could check that out, Cargo of Legends, there's a little interview stint with him, and it's kind of
Okay.
crossed with animations and stuff like that, and I kind of show
Cool.
footage of me up there and everything. But the main point was, I was like, buddy, I met with hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and like the influence that I got, that vigor, that conviction from the X-Men, from the story, from the character that you chose to play, like with in all seriousness, gave me the juice to give somebody something that was beneficial in their lives for a long time. You know what I'm saying? It's like long lasting. So it goes beyond just the entertainment, and maybe we think, okay, we have a profound experience. But when we're talking about experiences, when we as people, all of us as individuals, even us here, through our vulnerabilities, through our time of growth, you know what I'm saying? Through our experience of just relating with the world and ourself, and just thriving, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is so valuable, and to pass that on to these individuals, I think is important. So he was like, wow, you know, and he wrote, you know, to my friend, you know what I'm saying, just like Logan would say on there. And for me, that meant the world to me. I was like, man, I waited for this for years and years and years since I was a kid, and I'm 42 now, and seeing that, having that type of connection, man,
Yeah.
that's wonderful, man. It's worth its weight in gold, man. It's a gem. So yeah, we got to remind these cats that what they're doing, and if they're choosing to do that, they have a big responsibility to the canon of what's going on, the ethos of what's going on, but something that's profound. It'll change people's lives, like
Oh
definitely,
yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Back,
Absolutely.
Definitely.
yeah, man.
You couldn't have finished off with anything better than that for us. Chandler, let people know how they can attend the Uncanny Experience.
Absolutely. You can just visit theuncannyexperience.com. You can see what the event is like. Our ticket link is there. There's all sorts of photos. You can check it out. And you can follow us on social media. We are across Blue Sky and Instagram and Facebook. We are the Uncanny EXP, and you can check out everything that we're doing.
So cool.
There you
Thanks very
go.
much, man.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
to both. I really
Thank
want
you.
to thank you. And
You guys.
Chandler, please, I hope this isn't the last time you come on the pod, because I definitely know we'd like to get you back on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to come back on. Happy to also do a music focused talk as well.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Hey, we'll definitely
Thanks
do
again.
that. We'll definitely do that.
Respect,
All
Jay, for
right.
having me on as well. Nice to meet you, Chandler.
Nice to meet
Peace
you.
to you both. Peace to you both.